On a Football Friday, started right now from the Seaport. This is Greeny, and by no means alone. Look at the group we have together and ready to go talking football today. RC is here. Ninkovich is here. Bart Scott ready to go. Kimberly Martin's got all the insight. Let's get right to it. 4 fabulous games this weekend, and with apologies to our friend Mr. Van Pelt, how about one big thing from each game? Bart Scott, Rams, Packers. What's one big thing you're looking for?
I want to see Ramsey versus Adams, man, and see what's a goal to a goblin. Like I said, the closest thing to a lockdown corner, Revis Island type, is Ramsey. He's the best corner in the game, and he's a total eraser. Let's see if we can erase Adams.
That's the matchup that seems to be worth the price of admission. Meanwhile, Ninkovich, you're next. Ravens, Bills, give me one big thing.
How can the Buffalo Bills limit Lamar Jackson's ability to take over a game? We saw it last week with Tennessee. One play. It only takes one play for Lamar to get out, score a touchdown, and turn the whole game around. So the Buffalo Bills have to limit Lamar Jackson's ability to change a game and take it over.
Keep him from making that one big play. Meanwhile, Kimberly, one big thing on Browns Chiefs. That's your game you're covering. What are you watching for?
I'm watching to see if Baker Mayfield has a big day. Last week, the Browns went up 14-0 in less than 5 minutes on Pittsburgh. But what happens if the Browns fall into an early deficit against the Chiefs? They want to stick to who they are, which is running the football. But if they get behind, you can't just turn the clock and run the football. So Baker needs a big day.
And then finally, the matchup of the legends is Tampa and New Orleans. RC, give me one big thing.
Happy Friday, Greeny. What I'm looking for is, can you block and protect Tom Brady? The 2 games against the New Orleans Saints was the most he was pressured all year. And you know when Tom Brady is under pressure, he goes from the GOAT to Demi Moore doing pottery, and he will see ghosts. If you protect Tom Brady, you give your team a chance to win, Tampa Bay. If you don't, you'll be at home.
All right, it's a pop culture reference, I understand. Meanwhile, in their 2 previous meetings this year, the Bucs just have not protected Brady. He had his 2 highest pressure games in those 2 games against New Orleans this season, and as a result, the results went very much against him. In fact, as we come out and talk about this one a little bit, Bart Scott, the last time they played each other, it was 38-3. Let's focus on the 3. Tampa only managed 3 points against this defense. Why should we believe it's going to be different on Sunday?
Because I think finally, Greeny, they've settled on what's the best personnel for them. I think it's 2 tight ends, putting Brady and Gronk on the field. Listen, we all know as defenders that whenever a team comes out in their Tiger personnel, it limits your ability to have a trade, blitz personnel. So, it limits your blitz package, and also it makes those edges a lot wider, makes it a lot harder for you to get to Brady, and that allows Brady to step up in the pocket and be able to deliver the ball down the field. But also, it depends on how you're going to decide to match up against that personnel. Do you go light and then allow Gronk to get you in the run game, or do you go heavy and then spread those guys out and then take advantage of their ability to beat safeties and linebackers? So I think now that Bruce Arians, no risky, no bisky, has to be thrown out the way, they need to make sure that they're steady and limit the risk of Brady and his exposure to the pass rush of New Orleans Saints.
I like it. Gives us something to look for. Do they go with the 2 tight ends a lot? RC, how do you like it?
No, I love that. And Bart's exactly right. If you go back to the Washington football team against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we were looking for Chase Young, but we weren't focusing on how they got it accomplished. They would bring in the extra linemen. They would also keep the tight ends into block. Listen, when you have a Chris Godwin, a Mike Evans, a Cameron Brate, Rob Gronkowski, and Antonio Brown, you don't need everyone in the pass route at the same time. Also, look to the play action pass. Last game, they ran the ball 30 times. That allowed Tom Brady to get in his wheelhouse with the play action pass, drop back, and make plays. They finally found out that you can get biscuits without risking it. You can go to Whole Foods where they are checking temperatures at the door, and you have to wear masks and leave out there with the right nutrition. And that's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing now. They understand that protecting Tom Brady is number 1, but they can still create big plays down the field if he has the time. This is a great adjustment by Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians, and we've seen it pay dividends the last 5 weeks of the season. I expect it to do the same against the New Orleans Saints.
Meanwhile, Rob Ninkovich, you know all about playing huge games with Tom Brady, having been his teammate all these years. Give us a sense of what he's like going into a game like this.
Well, look, he's always competitive no matter what. In the regular season, into the playoffs, I think we even saw it last week against Washington, just that fire inside of him. He wants to make sure that everybody on that field understands that these are one-game seasons. And if you mess up and you don't have a complete game in these one-game seasons, your season is over. You're done. So I think he just, going into the playoffs, steps it up a little bit more as far as accountability and trying to make sure that that motor's running on all cylinders. And look, in the NFL, it's really hard to beat a team twice. It's even harder to beat that same team 3 times. So if you're Tampa, you're looking at those 2 tapes from earlier in the season, and you're trying to gain as much knowledge on that game as you can so you can put your best foot forward. And I can guarantee that they're going to protect Tom, because that's the Achilles heel. If they don't protect Tom, that's a wrap. So they got to go out there, they protect Tom. If Tom isn't getting the rubber pellets out of his ears and his eyes, they'll probably win this football game.
Look, I mean, they have been a different team offensively the last 5 weeks. They haven't played a winning team in that stretch. This one obviously will be an entirely different kind of test. Speaking of which, to our next game, which is the Browns and the Chiefs, and it's a monster matchup. And let's talk about the quarterback, the legend, Patrick Mahomes, who had a career-high 82.9 total QBR this year. That was second in the league behind Aaron Rodgers. Speaking of career highs, Travis Kelce finished with over 1,400 receiving yards this year, the most ever by a tight end. It was his 5th straight 1,000-yard season. That is also an all-time NFL record. And if the Chiefs win, they'd be hosting the AFC Championship game for a 3rd straight season. That would match the longest streak since the round was established after the 1970 merger. So a lot of history on the Chiefs side, and Vegas is on the Chiefs side. But you know who's on the Browns side? Odell Beckham Jr. Remember, he's still on the Browns, and he tweeted last night, "Don't be surprised this weekend when they win." Just throwing it out there now. So Odell is confident. Kimberly Martin, you've been with the Browns now the last 3 weeks, and you continue to cover them here. So open up the notebook. What are we looking for on Sunday?
The best part about this Browns team is that they don't care what you think, what I think, certainly not what Ryan and Rob think, because they're confident, yet not cocky. They really, because here's the thing, nobody gave them a chance, at least in their minds. They feel like nobody gave them a chance last week against Pittsburgh, and we saw that beatdown. And they felt like Pittsburgh even looked past them. I don't think the Chiefs are going to have that problem this week, but the Browns right now, they've got their head coach back off the COVID list. They've got all but one player, Joel Bitonio, off that COVID list, and he's expected to be off by Sunday's game. This is a team that feels like each week we've got to do our job. We get contribution from everybody. It's going to take a team effort. But talking to guys on the phone, on Zoom, listening to them, they believe not that they're just lucky to be here, that they deserve to be here, that they should be here, and that they could win. So the Browns right now are carrying some heavy, like, why not us against the world mentality and momentum into this game against the defending champs.
Which I like, and they deserve that.
Yes.
They have played well enough. They've earned their way here. But RC, here's the part of it that concerns me. Their weakness, I think, is the worst weakness to have against Kansas City, right? Their weakness is in pass defense on that back end. And if anyone is going to shred that, it's Patrick Mahomes. So how do they prevent that from happening?
You know what? It's going to be difficult. It's going to have to be a huge game by the front four of the Cleveland Browns. And we've watched them dominate games at times, especially Myles Garrett. But you have to get to Patrick Mahomes. Honestly, though, Greeny, I don't expect them to stop Patrick Mahomes. I don't expect this team to keep the Kansas City Chiefs under 28 points. So then it falls on Baker Mayfield. Let's go back to the one game that Patrick Mahomes lost this season. It wasn't that the the Las Vegas Raiders did a great job in pass defense early on in the game. But there was a stretch where they were creating turnovers, they were creating pressure, and Derek Carr was hitting big plays against the Kansas City Chiefs. Derek Carr had 5 plays of over 40 yards in that game. And that's what Baker Mayfield is going to have to do. Baker Mayfield is going to have to stand across from Patrick Mahomes, understand that it can't just be about running the football, that he's going to have to go toe-to-toe with him as he did when he was at Oklahoma and Patrick Mahomes was at Texas Tech in that shootout. Defensively, you have to come up with a play. You have to come up with a turnover. You need to come up with a strip fumble. It's not about stopping the Kansas City Chiefs the entire game. It's about coming up in critical situational football moments, and that's going to be on the front four of the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, Ninko, I'm also thinking of the time 2 years ago in the AFC Championship game when the Patriots basically kept Patrick Mahomes on the bench the entire first half and then hung on for dear life and won in the second. And that feels like it's a formula here as well.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much is the blueprint. What's the best way to beat Kansas City? And that would be to keep that offense off the field. So I think the Cleveland Browns are going to have to run the football, have long 10, 12, 14 play drives to really eat up the clock to where at the end of the game, every time Kansas City has touched the ball, they have to score. So you don't have the touches to where, okay, they kick a field goal, then they score, then they have a touchdown, then they kick another field goal. No. They have to score every time they touch the ball if they have limited touches. So I think for the best case scenario for Cleveland would be to go in there, run the football because that's what they do well, mix in your play action pass, and move the ball down the field methodically, use up that clock so the time of possession is in their favor.
I just want to point out that stat that Hembo popped up there quickly again. When Mahomes starts and they win the time of possession, Kansas City is 20-1. That tells you everything you need to know. All right, so a huge playoff weekend ahead of us, but at the same time, 3 big coaching moves made over the last 24 hours in the NFL. Let's start with this. This morning, Diana Rossini is reporting that the Falcons have offered their head coaching position to Arthur Smith, who has spent the last 2 seasons as the Titans offensive coordinator. Last night, the New York Jets hired 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh to be their head coach. According to Shefty, that's a 5-year deal for him. And as we expected, Urban Meyer will be back on the NFL sidelines as coach of the Jaguars. He's one of the most successful college coaches in the history of the sport, taking his talents now, if you will, to the NFL. Here's a statement from Urban that says, quote, "I've analyzed this decision from every angle. The time is right in Jacksonville, and the time is right for me to return to coaching. I'm excited about the future of this organization and our long-term prospect for success." And obviously part of that would be you can draft Trevor Lawrence. They have a ton of draft capital. They have a ton of free agent dollars. Kimberly, what can you tell us about the hiring of Urban Meyer in Jacksonville?
Yeah, isn't it interesting, Greeny, that Urban Meyer, somebody who we've seen go from one really good position to another, decides that this is, to quote him, the right time to come out of coaching, out of the booth and get back into coaching. And like you said, the big reason is that quarterback spot. They got the number 1 overall pick. Trevor, I think that shows the value of Trevor Lawrence and what somebody like Urban Meyer, the fact that he would come back out of retirement again. This is a guy who went to Florida, who was in Florida, retired over health concerns, went to Ohio State, again retired. So now I think the big question a lot of people wonder is how long is he actually going to be here? Urban didn't say much in that statement, but he's expected to talk to reporters today at 11:30. So he's going to be asked a lot about his health concerns and how long he plans to be in Jacksonville.
He is 56 years old. He'll be 57 by the time next season kicks off. He also joins a long list of notable college head coaches who make the jump to the NFL. And recent history has been mixed. Not a lot of success. You see some of the names and some of the records on there. Jim Harbaugh did lead the Niners to the Super Bowl. He's 1 play away from winning it. He had real success with the 49ers. But you see other names, legends like Nick Saban and Steve Spurrier, and particularly Bobby Petrino did not find that kind of success. So, RC, let me come to you on this one if I can here. How quickly do you think, they were 1-15, how quickly can he have Jacksonville in the playoffs?
I don't think it's very quickly. Anytime you're going to start your organization over with a new quarterback, with a new head coach, and a head coach who hasn't necessarily been in this league without a lot of veteran leadership on your team, I think it's difficult to build a winner right away. Now, can this team get better? Well, absolutely. They only won 1 football game, so you'll see progression. You'll see a different level of success, but I don't think this team competes right away. You mentioned Jim Harbaugh. Think about some of the players that were on that team, some of the veterans that he inherited with that defense that was extremely good with Dante Hittner and with, Patrick Willis, and also an offense that was run by a veteran quarterback in Alex Smith. That won't be the same situation in Jacksonville. So it's going to take time for Urban Meyer to put his imprint on this team and build that character that he wants the Jacksonville Jaguars to be, but that doesn't mean he can't do it over time.
Well, you brought up something, Bart, in our meeting this morning that really fascinated me, something that if you were in Jacksonville right now, you would strongly consider. Tell everybody what that is.
Well, absolutely. I would strongly consider trading that pick and trying to get Deshaun Watson. Now, I know it's within the division, but I would try and move and get a veteran, at that position because it's going to be hard. They're going to get a division that has 2 teams within their winning window right now in Indianapolis and Tennessee. So now you think about Urban Meyer, can he make that adjustment to dealing with grown men and not dealing with kids? Because what happens if you're dealing with young adults, it's a dictatorship in college. It's a partnership in the pros.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have to find some guys that's going to buy in, that's going to sell his message in the locker room. And to do that, you have to win the veterans. The good thing is they got rid of Fournette, they got rid of Ramsey, they got rid of Boye, all guys that will have strong personalities that can maybe turn the tide away from you. But when guys struggle like Nick Saban, when guys struggle like Petrino, when guys struggle coming from the college ranks, it's because they think they're talking to student athletes and not grown men that got mortgages, kids, and other responsibilities that'll tell you about yourself. And oftentimes they got more power than you have. So as soon as he understands that, the better he'll be. But they're not going to win for a long time. Or will he have the patience to endure 2-3 losing seasons before it turns around?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're going to have the opportunity to put together kind of whatever team he wants. Again, they have a ton of draft picks. They have a bunch of free agent money. They haven't won a game since week 1 of last season, and most likely they will have Trevor Lawrence as their quarterback. So it should be a fascinating scenario. Let's watch and see what they do. Meanwhile, the other decision that was made last night, as mentioned, the New York Jets have hired the man they're now calling Mr. Green, 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh, as their new head coach. That's the cover of today's New York Post. Let me come back to Kimberly Martin here. Kimberly, you've covered that team. You know them well. What are you hearing about why the Jets chose Robert Saleh?
Greeny, it's a good day to be a Jets fan, right? What really impressed the Jets front office was that Saleh came in. He's got a presence when he walks in the room, number one. But they love his leadership ability. We saw what he did in San Francisco, taking that defense, being a player's coach. Those guys love him over there. Richard Sherman tweeting about it. But the Jets also love the fact that there was a good rapport between him and Joe Douglas and team president Jaime Elhai. They love that Saleh was able to present and articulate a clear plan for how to turn this franchise, push it in a new direction. Now, that doesn't mean a new direction means a new quarterback. Time will tell, but they love what they've seen. Now, that said, being a head coach is a lot different than being a defensive coordinator. You're now the CEO of a franchise. And